Imagine you have a senior developer working beside you all the time. You can ask her or him if there is everything okay in your code. Yes, this is all possible, at least in some sense. You can use tools to check your code and let them format your code in the best way possible according to standards, as the senior developer would do for you. In big companies, you rarely work alone. You're part of a team, and that means your code needs to blend in, not really stand out. That's where ESLint and Prettier come in to avoid unnecessary merge conflicts. This isn't another setup tutorial. This is a short but real story about the invisible tools that keep large code base clean, and how outdated ESLint nearly cost me hours of productivity. First powerful tool is Prettier. Prettier doesn't care if you like tabs or spaces, or if you are using single or double quotes. It just formats your code automatically. That's a good thing to maintain project standards. It removes friction. You can easily configure your IDE to perform Prettier formatting every time when you save your file. Or another way is to prettify your code on Git push event with the help of another tools. Okay, but what really means that Prettier formats your code? Well, it removes all original styling and ensures that all outputted code conforms to a consistent style according to your project settings. To set up Prettier on a project, the project needs to have a file called .prettierrc. It often works fine with default settings, but you can configure them to your needs. Here is an example how you can configure Prettier in Angular project. Okay, here is a configuration of a Prettier in an Angular project. Here you can see you can define tab width. I'm using a 2. Then you can set your preferences on quotes. I'm using single quotes. And then, for example, you can define width of your code. I'm using standard for Angular, and that is 80. Here you can see the Prettier in action. I defined some internal private attribute. I didn't use column to end line. I defined an example method. And also I define a non-well structured if statement. And at the end, I just hit save, and here you can see the result of a prettified code. Now we have our code base clean, so we can identify if we have made any errors or if we have implemented something in a bad way using not really good practices. Here comes handy tools called ESLint. ESLint is like a quiet teammate that catches most of bad habits. It flags unused imports or console logs left behind. The definition describes ESLint as a static code analysis tool for identifying problematic patterns found in JavaScript code. It can warn the developer in early development phase, so all the problematic parts can be reviewed. And also, it can be integrated with CI or with Git commit event to enforce standards. Let's take a look how the ESLint is configured in an Angular project. To set up the ESLint configuration, you need to define a file called eslint.config.js, and the file can look like this. Here I'm exporting the ESLint rules. As you can see, I'm overriding some base rules, and then I define explicit rules for each specific file type. Here at the bottom, I have defined a component selector name, which comes as a default, which is not really ideal, but it is what it is. And that means each my component selector should be prefixed with app, and then comes component selector in kebab case. Also here I defined no console rules, which defines console.log as an error. As you can see here in dummy service, when I wrote something like this, the ESLint identifies it as an error, which I defined in the config. Right now, we know what is the purpose of ESLint and Prettier and how these tools are used on a project. Now I want to share a situation that happened in my current project after onboarding. In my current project, ESLint and Prettier was with version that was 2+ years old. Don't get me wrong, it worked, but barely. When Angular introduced new control flow syntax, the linter and Prettier choked. It couldn't understand modern constructs like addIf and addFor. It was very frustrating to write the new views with the constant ESLint and Prettier misunderstanding. I had to push really hard to convince leaders to update. But why? Because upgrading ESLint and Prettier felt risky? In my opinion, riskier was not to upgrade. We were blocking innovation over outdated tooling. Just imagine. You have a deadline for a new feature which has a lot of screens. You know that your project is using latest Angular and you want to use the latest best practices of the framework which comes with that version. But no, you are being held back because the tools that are required in your project is automatically skewing the views for you, and the views are becoming unreadable. What would you do? Was upgrading necessary or not? What are your thoughts? Of course, you can share them in the comments. I'm really looking forward to them.